This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Coming up on The Payoff, Hamza Najam. This is a gem in itself, and I can't believe it's free. Not only does he talk to us about the wreckage and the spiral that took place when he was drinking and using, and it's very interesting and compelling, but by far the more interesting or most interesting part of this conversation are the solutions he brings to folks that are struggling with the addiction of alcohol or other drugs, and the way he uses breath work along with 12-step stuff. It's an amazing wrinkle to add into your program, or it's an amazing way to help you stop drinking if that's something you're struggling with right now. An amazing conversation, and I mean that. I can't believe this was free. It supercharged me. I can't wait to share this with you. But first, of course, we share Kevin Souza. Okay. I guess to start, Hamza, just to give people a little context, like what's your sobriety date?
My sobriety date is March 11, 2020. So it's been over 5 years.
Give us a little background into your journey about abuse, right? Of alcohol specifically.
Yeah.
When did you have that first encounter with alcohol? Where, for me, I always say it was like, that was like my first spiritual experience, What was yours like the first time you danced?
The very first time I'm from Pakistan, and alcohol is not legal there. So the way we would drink as 17-year-olds is we would have to go into dark alleys and buy it from shady people and then hide it from the cops and everything, right? So that's how we would do it. We'd drink at a friend's house whose parents were not that intense about having people over. And my first experience with alcohol, I got really drunk. I puked my guts out and I had no idea what I was doing. But the idea was that we have to finish the bottle that night because we can't risk getting caught. So we would just get absolutely hammered every time we would do it. And that's essentially how it started for me back then.
How did the abuse sort of pick up? When did you start to realize, like, man, I may be using this a little too much, or it may feel a little too good, right?
Yeah. So I moved to Canada when I was 19. So this is now 2006, 2007. And because of the freedom of being able to walk into a store and buy alcohol, I've never had that before. So naturally, things got a little out of control. But it still wasn't like throughout my university years, I was studying, but also drinking and partying heavily. And it was just a regular part. I'm sure everyone can relate to that. It's after when I stepped into the real world, having to pay rent and having to work and having to, live a standard life. That's when I noticed that it started becoming too much of it started becoming an everyday habit. But the big explosion, if you want to call it that, is so I'm a big lover of electronic music, house, techno, deep house. It's what feeds my soul. So I got into the music scene. My friends were DJs. We got into it. We moved our way up. We started doing our own parties. That's when things started getting very out of control. I would be the one who would drink the most, and that's when the abuse would start setting in. And it got to a point where my weekends were a blur. Every day I would drink after work and be tired and hungover the next day, but I wouldn't stop. And then there was a good 4 or 5 years where I was saying to myself, okay, you have to do something about this. You have to do something about this. This is definitely out of control because I was smoking, I was drinking. There were other things involved, as they go with the party favors with the party scene, I guess. Yeah. And by the time I hit 27, which is exactly 10 years ago, I started to lose my mind. I was depressed, overweight. I hated myself. I was overly emotional, easily triggered. People didn't really like hanging out with me anymore. And then the depression spiral started. And one thing I've left out is when I came to Canada, I was on a mission to help not just myself, but my family, come here, live a better life, because that's kind of, what most people want. And I wasn't succeeding in that. And I was actually failing miserably in that mission. And all of that kept adding to the pressure, adding to the pressure, adding to the pressure. It got to a point where every waking moment I was thinking about drinking. Friday night I would start, all Saturday, wake up, hair of the dog, start slowly, and then keep it going, take a shower, get dressed, go out, party all night, come back Sunday morning, can't sleep, keep going. Like that just became my life. And it took everything from me. I nearly lost my job, I lost my home, almost lost everything. But
Dude, I got to ask a question too. Like, because, like, for me, my dad's from Connecticut, right? So, like, it was pretty easy for me to trace, like, the lineage of, like, alcoholism in his family and beyond, right? Like,
yep.
for you being from Pakistan, where it's like, it's illegal. I mean, it's almost like you don't know what you don't know, I would guess. Like, did you know that? Was there even a thread of alcoholism in your family, or had you seen what it looked like, or you were just going in totally blind, I would imagine?
I, as any child, when you tell them you can't do something, they want to do it. That's all it was for me. Why am I not allowed to drink? So that's just how it started for me. The main reason was throughout my 20s, it became my identity, my personality. I was the guy, the fun guy, the guy who's always loaded and having a good time. And I adorned that. I owned it. I made it who I am or was. And that was the big problem, because somewhere along the way, I completely forgot who I was without alcohol. And when I would try to think of what life could be like without it, how would I stop? Okay, I want to stop, but okay, how? What are you going to do? Who are you going to hang out with? Where are you going to go? What are you going to do on weekends? What are you going to do when you get home?
Yeah.
Those questions would just keep circling. And I'd just be like, okay, I guess I'll just have a beer while I think about this. And it would just keep going in circles. This cycle of me wanting to stop or do something about this, drink less. I did for years. I'm only going to go out and have one drink. I'm only going to take $30 with me, and when it's done, it's done. Turns out I'm really good at swinging free drinks when I make friends with people. I tried leaving my credit card at home. I tried just going out completely sober. None of these strategies work. Moderation didn't work. AA didn't work. I tried that for a few months as well. And, I tried therapy. I even tried hypnosis. You know, Nothing worked until something did. And that was you.
So this is super interesting. Um, before we get to your recovery, I do want to get into that, like, music scene you were in a little bit,
Yeah.
because it sounds like that was an environment where drinking is like totally, it's a part of the culture.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So, like, you're out all night, you're playing sets, or you're DJing. How by the way, how high did you guys get, like, career wise? Like, how much success did you achieve?
So the biggest pinnacle of what we did was in Toronto. There is, and you can look this up. There's a place called the Don Valley Brick Factory. It's called Evergreen Brickworks. This place is designated as a heritage site, meaning you can't just show up and throw parties there. So I managed to swing that venue for a music festival. And we ended up bringing around 3,000 people to that show. It was a one-day show, costing upwards of 100,000 to put together. We lost around 40K on that day. But that was, just to put things in context. Going back to how, like, that environment, right? My job as the head promoter was to make sure that we had 12 DJs lined up for 12 hours of music, and each and every one of them in their rider puts promoter must provide white towel during the during the set.
Yeah.
I showed up with an actual white towel for the first act, and that guy turned to me and laughed. This is like a big international DJ, and he's laughing at my face. I'm like, "What? You asked for a white towel?" And he's like, "That's not what it means, dude."
Oh my God. Okay.
And then I immediately rushed and I bought like half an ounce like that, just to be able to give it out to all the artists. So, like, I'm just trying to give context on what the
And we're talking about
expectation is.
cocaine.
Yes,
Yes.
without
Yeah.
saying too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what they were talking about. So in terms of our success, we would do, our brand was very, like, we wanted to bring class to house music and not like the dirty raving scene, although that's where we all started. But we were getting traction. But the main thing was that I was in the public eye and I was getting very out of control. And even once, we were at a music festival out there in the boonies, just far, far away. And I had been up for 3 days. And on the third day, I passed out in the lake while I was, just dancing around in the water. And if other people hadn't seen me, I would have drowned.
Yeah.
And my body just shut down on me after 3 days. And when I woke up, there was a ring of people around me. They were looking down at me. And that was like the biggest shock moment that I could ever have gone through. And this was 2016. And that's when I just white knuckled my way to 9 months of sobriety. And that was my first attempt at sobriety, but a very big relapse followed and a very, very expensive lesson as well, that you can't do it for other people. You can't do it to
So
prove to other people.
So yeah, no, you have to do it for yourself. And one more thing about when you were drinking, because I think it's significant what we put on other people. You and I are talking before this. We started to record, and you mentioned you have your third kid, right?
Yeah.
You seem like you're in a real good spot now. I mean,
Yep.
much different than passing out in a lake during a festival.
Yeah.
Where you're in the public eye. For all I know, you might have been in charge of the thing. What were your relationships like at that time? Romantic relationships, people that got close to you. How would that result?
Oh, so it had got to a point where I felt there was an ugliness inside me that I was very good at hiding until people got close. That's what I thought about myself. My relationships were pretty much non-existent in the sense that I would meet people, they would get charmed by me, but 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, they would see the real me, the
Yeah,
drinking me, and all that happens, and how it was nothing like what they thought I would be, all because I knew that I had to project a version of me that is not the real me, otherwise people won't like me. The weight of that the shame from all of that, where I always felt like if I reveal my true self, these people will walk away. And the reality is that is exactly what happened every time. So
yeah,
um relationships were pretty bad. Relationship with my brother was also really bad. We were living together at the time, my younger brother, and he doesn't drink at all. He's like the good Muslim kid that I was supposed to be as well. It didn't work out that way. Relationship with my parents really bad, especially with my mom. I was just always, my mindset at that time was I was the victim. Everyone's out to get me, and I just kept drinking, kept fueling that fire, and it would come out. It would come out in various ways. It would come out in public, getting into arguments, getting triggered, acting out, getting jealous. Nobody likes
yeah.
that stuff. not in not in
But
these
that's
days.
not who you are. But
No,
that's what this stuff makes us do. You know?
exactly.
Yeah,
It's a progressive chipping away at who you really are inside until you forget who you were in the first place. That's what I experienced.
so in 2020, so you mentioned 2016, that moment is terrifying. And then ultimately you put together 9 months of sobriety, but then a relapse follows. And what happens the moment where, hey, I've got to do something about this and it stops? Because and all is fair here. Like, I'm a 12-step guy, AA guy. I went to treatment. I lived in a recovery house, like that. So, and that really, even before I got sober, I'd gone to AA. I liked what a lot of people in that room had, but I wasn't ready, couldn't get it, whatever.
Right.
Um, but I also know that I mean, Hamza, I don't give a shit how anybody gets sober.
Yeah.
Just whatever it is. And that's what I love about our platforms is we can share all kinds of different ways. And if you're a 12-step guy, you can maybe thread the needle and add some breath work. Like what was your
Absolutely.
yeah, what was your experience though with 12 steps and then ultimately leading you to becoming this certified breath work teacher? national. Everybody is trying to get a piece of what you have. How did you end up there?
So the the to answer that question, I have to explain the lesson that I learned in
For
those
sure.
9 months.
Yeah.
Those 9 months is what you would describe as white knuckling.
Yeah.
This is something that 90% of us, when we decide that, okay, we have to do something about this, we focus right on, I just won't drink. And as long as I don't drink, everything is okay. I didn't change anything other than the fact that I stopped drinking. I still wanted to. I still put myself, we had events every month. I was there setting up, closing at 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. That stuff didn't change. Everything, my friends stayed the same. Everything stayed the same. I was living the exact same life that I was when I was drinking, minus the alcohol. And that was the biggest mistake that I made because that will only take you so far. When you have to push and push and push to stay sober every single day, you will run out of energy at some point. And that's exactly what happened. I relapsed because when that thing happened at that party, my partners that I was working with said, "Listen, dude, we can't work with you anymore because you're tainted now,
Yeah.
So we can't do this with you." And I said, what if I stop drinking?" They're like, "Well, can you?" And I said, "Yeah, let me show you." And that's the problem. It was for them. It was to show the world that I can do this after something terrible like that happened. During my relapse, it was the worst than ever before in terms of the amount that I was drinking, in terms of the depression, the anxiety, the weight I gained, and all of those things. And it kept pushing me into this hole where I thought that, okay, this is it. My life is never going to change. And this is exactly it. Then came along 2020, a new decade, and I mustered the courage to do something with my life. And in the beginning of the year, I stopped smoking. I used patches and whatnot, and then I stopped eating meat. And then the third thing was that, all right, let's do something with the alcohol. These were just some personal things that I wanted to achieve. Now, with the alcohol, it was clear to me that I have a deeper problem. Like there's something wrong with me. That's what I had thought at that time. It's no coincidence. I found the book by Joe Dispenza called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. This book talks about the quantum energies and how we're all connected and sort of the law of energies within human beings and all of that. When I learned that by drinking alcohol, I'm reducing my vibration, I'm lowering my vibration, it's depressing my central nervous system. And a lot of the things that I learned, and especially the process of meditation, the process of shifting your focus inward, that is when things started to change. I got lucky though, because if you notice the date, March 11th is
Yeah.
in 2020. The week after that, literally the week after that, lockdowns came.
Yeah.
All the bars are closed, all the clubs are closed, all the flights are stopped, and everybody's at home. And I got lucky there because even if I was tempted, there was nowhere to go. So I used that time to double down, start waking up early, start journaling, start meditating, getting deep into like what is inside me that makes me the way I am. And the first step from that was complete acceptance. I fucked it up. This is my life, and there's no one to blame other than myself.
Responsibility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
accountability as well, right? Like I
Yes.
finally, for the first time in my life, took responsibility for my actions. That okay, you got yourself into this hole. Now you will find a way to get yourself out of it. Um, that is
What
how
was the
the
moment where you were able to do that? Do you remember what it was? Was there a brokenness that you were able to say, okay, I see that this is my fault. That is a pathway to repair. Like, was
yeah.
there a time?
There was there the realization happened within my second meditation where it just hit me that holy shit, I am the architect of all of this. Because until that point, I had a lot of reasons to play the victim. I had this responsibility. Like when I came to Canada, my parents didn't really have a lot of money. They gave me enough money for the first year and they said, figure it out or come back, like sink or swim.
Yeah.
So as an international student, I had to pay 20,000 Canadian dollars a year for 1 year and then 4 years in total. So I got 20K from my parents. I had to come up with another 60K. And I had never worked a day in my life until I came to this country. I didn't even know like the difference between a washer and a dryer because people did my laundry for me there. Like that's just how it is, you know? And I had no life skills, no skills of any kind. And then I just got dropped in the deep. At that time, minimum wage was $7 an hour. Like, there's not enough hours in the day to make that kind of money and pay for myself and all that. So that pressure is what started making me feel like I'm less than. And my biggest fear was disappointing my parents and getting to a point where I fail and come back. And lo and behold, around March 11, 2020, around that time, that realization had come true. That fear had come true. Like I was at a point where I was barely making whatever money I was making was going towards alcohol. I couldn't control it. And every night I would say, oh God, I want to start tomorrow. I'm going to do this. Tomorrow I'm going to do this. But that tomorrow never came. And in my second meditation, 10, 15 minutes in, it hit me that all of that narrative is just noise and that I just have to take responsibility for all the things I have done, stop playing the victim and start working on the solution. So that was the moment. I think it was March 9th, maybe March 10th. That was the moment when things hit me. And after that, things changed.
I want to dive into the solution, specifically your solution and how deep you go. You
Yeah.
know, when did you start to use breath work almost like strategically? Like, when did you understand? Like, for me, it's like I can remember being in a recovery house, right? I was probably 2 months sober. I mean, there were moments that came before that and treatment and stuff, but like, I really realized that, like, if I put my emotions out there, tell other people what is going on with me, I can actually help people because I saw the light in their eye go on, and they would share back to me what was happening with them, and we had this connection. Right, we were
Yep.
broken, but we were like now survivors of that shipwreck, and
Yep.
together we could bond and overcome some of this stuff. For you, when did breath work start to do that for you, and what did you do to start to elevate, your whole mission with breath work and the nervous system?
Yeah. So at first, in the first year of my sobriety, I was pretty much just focusing on myself. Within the first month after adopting a more mindfulness based lifestyle, it made me realize that, wait a second, this was nowhere close to as hard as it was the last time. What is the difference? And the difference was the acceptance and the fact that only I can change this. Um, the breath work came about a year later because after like my practice had become a little stagnant in that I'm like, okay, I've been meditating for a long time. What else is there that I can do? I came across this lady online and she offered to do a breathwork session with me. She's like, hey, I've been following your page. I want to show you something. I think it could help you. In my first breathing session, which lasted about 35 minutes, I released. It felt like there was, how do I explain this? These emotions, this energy that was stuck to the very organs within me that was just detaching itself and coming out of me. And we did some intense work in that one session. But by the time I came out of it, even after a year of sobriety and mindfulness and all of that, it just my body, like I was buzzing with, it felt like I was on a natural high and everything was okay in the world and there was no problem whatsoever. And that's when she explained that what we did was the process of uncovering and releasing trapped emotions by regulating your nervous system a little bit. Because even until that point, I was still wound up. We're talking years, decades of doing the same thing in the same way, right? So the memory of that starts to live in your nervous system. When I had that experience, I was like, all right, I got to get certified in this and learn everything there is to learn. I found a teacher in Portugal. He lives on a homestead, and I was just in awe of that guy. I'm like, man, I want what you have. Like, you're doing breath work with your kids, living on this farm, and like doing this awesome work. So that's when I got certified about 3 or 4 months later, and then started my own personal practice. And the difference it made in my personal journey, that was a complete no-brainer. I was like, all right, I have to. I rebranded my whole thing. I changed everything. I basically ripped it apart and started again from scratch when I discovered the power of breathwork. And since then, I have various certifications. I wanted to learn acutely the problems that people that are drinking and want to stop are unable to stop. What are those problems? How we talk to ourselves, the commentary in our own head, the view of the how we view ourselves, our self-confidence, all these things come into play. This is where neurolinguistic programming comes in to help change the way we think about ourselves and the way we talk to ourselves. I got certified in the what is it mindfulness based stress reduction techniques. So this is movement based stress reduction. It works really, really well when you combine it with breath work. Then I discovered Andrew Huberman. Holy hell, man, that guy is just on another level. That's when I got interested in neuroscience. So then I got a certification from Harvard X, which is their online platform. So deep, so informative, but that's how I learned how the brain ticks. And now in 2025, I've sort of put all those pieces together to help people, first and foremost, address the root causes. What is it inside you that is driving this on the surface? Because it's almost never about the alcohol itself. It's about changing how you feel inside. Think about it. When you were still drinking, the moment you wanted to reach for a drink, there was something happening inside you. Maybe some painful emotions, maybe you're just bored, maybe you feel anxious, or you don't know what it's about, but it is an internal state that by way of drinking, you are hoping to change, right?
Yeah. And by the way, you know that drinking doesn't work for you, but you're still reaching for it, which
Yes.
makes that emotion you're talking about very, it must be very pronounced for us to make a decision like that.
Yeah, it definitely is. We Once I started doing this work with people, and I had people as examples. One of my members, his wife passed away from cancer, left behind 2 kids, and now he's like drinking uncontrollably because he can't figure out like how to live life without her. This person now, within 3 months, is loving life again and is so happy and just feeling light, feeling calm. So what the work that we did with him, we didn't stop drinking immediately. We first worked on uncovering and bringing to light what it is that makes you want to drink. Then we use breath work in real time. Let's say you're feeling an urge to drink, but the key is you have to want to stop. So when you feel the urge, but you tell yourself no, but then you continue to feel the urge, that dissonance when you get pulled in 2 different directions, that's when this works. If you feel like drinking and just immediately reach for a drink and start drinking, then it's not going to work, right? In that moment, your nervous system is acting up. Your sympathetic nervous system is being switched on because you're fighting with yourself. You're fighting with the craving. You're telling yourself, hey, no, I made a decision this morning that I'm not going to do this. But again, you're leaning towards drinking. You're leaning towards drinking. That's when we interrupt these patterns, these automated patterns around drinking when you're stressed, drinking when you come home from work, drinking when your kids are not listening to you or putting them to bed, and finally saying, oh my God, finally I can have a drink and relax. These are all mindsets. These are all the programming of how we think. So the nervous system is at the root of it all. So I figured out a way to just go right to the source. Forget about all the other noise. Go right to the source. And much to my surprise, people from all walks of life are coming back to me and saying, holy shit, things are so different. I feel so different. I don't feel the need to drink anymore. I released so much over the last couple of weeks. And this is just standard now
So
in
yeah,
the
you
community.
you make. I'm so curious about this. When you say you go right to the source without giving away all the secrets, right? Because we want people to
There's
reach
no
out to
secret.
you, all over, and we want people to get involved because you're not only a certified breathwork teacher, you're a nationally certified recovery coach.
Yep.
And you have a certificate in mindfulness-based stress reduction. Like you are a place people can go for a lot of solutions. But that number one thing, when you said you got right to it, What do you mean by that? Like you got right to
So
the source.
going right to the source, first and foremost, is the mindset shift is that alcohol isn't actually the main problem anymore. If you have reached a point, you've been drinking for a decade or two, you're in your 40s, your 50s, you've been doing the same thing since your 20s, and now you're trying to make a change and finding it difficult. Alcohol isn't the main focus, because when you focus just on alcohol and focus on not drinking, you're ignoring all the systems that we have put
Yeah.
in place over the years that make you want to drink in the first place. There are several. Now, as I said, there are no secrets, and I want to give your audience as much value and as much information that they can use right away. So you must have heard that we only use about 5% of our brain,
Sure.
the awareness part. So
I
what
think I
happens with
use
the
less, but yeah, you got it.
what happens with the other 95%? Right? That we are told that that is our subconscious. What's really happening is that that's the gray matter of our brain. Now, every single experience that we have ever had in our life, everything, people, places, smells, events, moments, all of it, the memory of it all lives in the gray matter of your brain. And each time we repeat something, especially something that gives us pleasure, like you have a drink, it releases some chemicals. You're like, oh, yeah, that feels good. Your brain goes, okay, we want to do this again. We want to do this again. So that process by nature becomes automated. When it becomes automated, you're not thinking about it, you're just doing it. Now, fast forward 10 years, 20 years of doing the same thing, you will end up with hundreds of triggers where you pass by a certain road and you look at the liquor store and you're like, ah, yes, let me go there. Right. You're sitting at work and it's 3 o'clock and you're like, God damn it, I got 2 more hours to go. To do a glass of wine would be nice right now. And then the next 2 hours, you're like, okay, I'm going to get this Chardonnay or I'm going to get that bottle today. I'm going to sit at home, I'm going to do this. And you're already, before you know it, you're already thinking about it. These are all automated processes. The trigger point, what starts it all, is always something in your external environment. That external environment is the full collection of everything you've ever done in your life: your home, your office, your car, the way this furniture is the what you look at when you're sitting. Like all of these things, you're getting feedback from them. And your brain knows that when we are in this context, there's a specific way we think and feel. And that is the root problem. That program, that automated way to think and feel, because your brain is just trying to conserve energy. It knows that, okay, when we come home, shut the door, sit down, put our feet up on the couch, the next thing is open the fridge and get a beer, right? So when we try to stop these systems, the inertia from these systems is still there. Even though mentally we make the decision that, okay, today I'm going to do something different, but you still feel that pressure. And that is the root cause. So when I say we get right to it, I don't I don't tell people that, hey, you have to stop right now, day one, right away today, because then it overwhelms their system. And most likely you will not be successful because it'll become too overwhelming and you'll say, screw it, and fall back into the same pattern. And we have to uncover all these patterns that you have for yourself. When this happens, it makes me think about drinking. When that happens, it makes me think about drinking. And then the cycle repeats itself. So that's the root cause analysis. That's what I mean by we get right to the source. Where does the desire to drink come from? And most people, when they ask themselves that question, they stop at the first layer. Oh, I'm bored. Oh, it's Friday. What else am I going to do? Right? I had a long day, had a stressful day. I deserve it. But that's it. There are 7 more layers all the way down to your subconscious that we have to explore. So this is how we get started. We uncover the patterns. We then use breath work to interrupt those patterns. When you interrupt those patterns, your brain serves you up all these different reasons why you shouldn't be interrupting it today, but start tomorrow, right? And then it's like you light a fire under a beehive, and then you're catching all the bees. You're like, all right, let me catch this and write it down. Let me write it down. Let me write it down. And that's how you get a map of what's really happening in your brain and in your body that is making you want to drink.
So
And
writing is a big part of this.
Oh, yes.
You like as you're having these thoughts, you write them down, which is pretty intense, and it illustrates, right? There you go. Yeah, you just held up the yellow ledger. Yeah. But it illustrates what's going on in your mind, and it really does bring to life all that stuff that we acknowledge but we don't acknowledge, right? Like
Exactly.
it's like it's that old screw it, right? Like that's like I would have that's a part that's one of my layers, you know. I mean, like one way or another, it's super interesting. How do you? So people write it down, but you write it down, and then what do you do? Like how do you build on that?
So once you know what your Achilles heels are, those moments, those situations that make you want to drink, we practice going against the grain, sort of interrupting the pattern. What happens is all the painful stuff, all the stuff that's been swept under the rug, that starts to surface. And that is what we want, because then comes the process of sitting with all of these emotions. Because what is it that we all do when we get into this place in life? We have been using alcohol as a way to numb and escape, which is another way of saying we don't deal with the things that make us feel bad or make us feel less than or whatever. So then we embark on that journey to deal with, to sit through and make sense of and release all these things that we hold on to, all the regrets that we have, and so on. Another big piece of it is the vision. Every time I talk to somebody who really wants to get sober, I ask them, okay, let's say you 6 months have passed. I just gave you a magic pill. 6 months have passed. You haven't had a drink in 6 months. How does your life change? What happens? What has happened? And they're like, oh, well, I guess I will lose some weight. And that's kind of like, okay, no, you have to have a vision. No one invented anything without visualizing it first. So we use the power of our frontal lobe. We use the power of visualization. Just to put this in context, our brain doesn't know the difference between an imagined experience and a real world experience, so long as the emotion is attached to it, right? That's countless studies have been done on this. Joe Dispenza's work is all about this. And one study that really stood out to me was this is back in 1992. So think of how long we've been sitting on this information.
Yeah.
They did a study of participants where one group, their only job for 5 days a week, 4 hours a day, was to extend their index finger like this. That's it. That's all they're doing. And then there was another group that did
You're just
nothing.
basically, for people that are listening online, you're just curling it up and putting it out, curling it
Yeah,
up.
you're just flexing your index finger and
Yeah.
pulling it back, and kind of like pulling a trigger and then doing it again. Okay. Second group did nothing. Third group did the same exercise, same duration, same time, except they did it mentally. Okay, simple enough.
You thought about it. Gotcha.
Yeah, they thought about it. They didn't physically do it. Now, when they measured the results, the group that did nothing, obviously there was no change. The group that did the physical exercise with their finger, the finger strength in that finger went up by 30%. Now, the group that only did it in their mind, their finger strength went up by 22%.
Huh.
Are you kidding? How? They didn't move their finger, quote unquote. They didn't lift a finger. So how did this happen? This is the power of so this proves that our imagination can alter physical matter. So this is another way of saying we can convince ourselves that something is real as long as we feel what it's like, right? The emotion is attached to it. So what I do is every person that joins our program, I have them fill out a worksheet. On that worksheet, it's a very detailed worksheet where they put down in detail, physically, how do I see myself? What do I imagine? What am I doing? What are my habits like? Mentally, what it's like? How do I deal with stress? How do I deal with overwhelm? Spiritually, what is my relationship with the higher power or God or whatever? Like I don't discriminate. Everybody's higher power is their higher power. Financially, how are things changing? What's different, right? There's 5 quadrants like that: emotional, physical, mental, spiritual, and financial. They give that to me. I convert that into a completely customized guided visualization meditation. It's a full pranayama session. That's what I teach. So we do breath work, and then we use breath work to open up the energetic channels, get your mind into a meditative place, and then do the vision. When it comes from the heart, when you really want these things, and then you do it, you hear it back in a visualization, the vision opens. You start to feel it, you start to see it. And that's how we ground each person in the vision of who they want to become. And then we practice training our body on how to feel after you have achieved that vision. So, this is the biggest secret, which is no longer a secret, to manifestation. How do you manifest what you want? Well, you've heard of fake it till you make it, right?
Yes.
So, let me give you an example of what that's like. I just gave you a check for $1 million. Okay. Now you know you have $1 million,
Yes.
right? You go to the bank, you deposit it. Teller says, yeah, this is going to take a couple of weeks to clear. Okay. You don't have the money yet, but you know without a shadow of a doubt you got it, but you just don't have it yet. How does that change your energy? How does that change your mood? How does that change your outlook on life?
Big time. Big time.
Right? That is what we have to do. And that's the most counterintuitive thing for a lot of people. How can I know how it's going to feel when I haven't done it yet? And that's where the visualization comes in. So we can go deeper into this. that's the main.
No,
crux.
that's amazing, dude. And I got a couple more things for you because I can't keep you here all day. But if somebody's listening right now and struggling to stop drinking, what's a practical step that they can take today to start shifting? To start looking at things differently.
The practical thing is, the first thing you have to tell yourself and convince yourself is that alcohol isn't the problem. So stop not drinking. Stop focusing on not consuming it, because when you do that, you're putting it in the front and center of your mind. So each time you say, I will not drink, you will actually think about drinking even more. So what is the alternative? I will stay sober today. I want to wake up sober tomorrow. I want to wake up with energy tomorrow. Now you're fixating on the solution, not the problem. So that's one thing. Second thing is, the moment you tell yourself, when you feel the urge to drink and you are trying to hold off, dig deeper. There's a thing called the 7 Why exercise. This is essentially, very simply, I'll give you my personal example. I would always come home and want to have a drink. I was single at that time. After that, I didn't see a point in not drinking. So I asked myself, why do I want to drink when I come home from work? Well, because I'll be bored. Okay. Second why. What is it about being bored that makes you want to drink? Well, after thinking about it, when I am not doing something, when I'm not distracting myself, all these thoughts come up and they make me uncomfortable. Okay. What is it about these uncomfortable thoughts that makes you want to drink? This is the third why. Well, these uncomfortable thoughts are all around all the shitty things I've done in my life and all the people I've lost and all the regrets that I hold on to. And I don't want to deal with that. Okay. What about that makes you want to drink? This is the fourth now. Well, because if I don't drink, then I feel shitty and I want to numb myself, and I don't want to feel this. And that's why I would rather have a drink. Well, what is it about not wanting to feel this that makes you want to drink? Now we're getting to the good stuff. Now it's like, oh, well, I guess it's because I know how much hard work it's going to be, and I can't even begin to imagine where I start. So that's why. What is it about that that makes you want to drink, right? I guess the last thing this really blew my mind was, because it makes me feel like there's something wrong with me. It makes me feel like I'm lonely, that people don't love me, that I'm unlovable, and all these nasty things come up, and that's why I end up drinking. So I don't drink because I'm bored. I drink because I am feeling so badly about who I am as a person that I'd rather not face that. That blew my mind.
Yeah.
That blew my mind. Right? So that's a root cause right there. 7 layers deep. Just take out a piece of paper and start writing. Why do I want to have a drink right now? Okay. What is it about that that makes you want to drink? What is it about that? Like, just keep going and you will come to these nuggets of golden information about what's really happening underneath. Number 3, if you go onto my YouTube channel or onto my Instagram, I have tons of free breathwork videos. There's a specific one on stopping your craving. First thing you do is you play the tape forward. If I have this one drink, what is going to happen? I'm sure you must have learned about this.
That's old school. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's old school. So we still do that.
Yeah.
However, immediately after that, there's a alternate nostril breathing technique. I'll demonstrate very simply. I'll do 1 round, and then you guys have to do at least 10 to 15, depending on how you're feeling. Right thumb, take it and block your right nostril.
All right, I'm
Take a
doing this.
deep inhale from your left, all the way till your belly's full. Now, switch the nostril and exhale from the right, all the way, all the way, all the way until your belly is completely sucked in. Now, inhale again from the right, all the way, and then switch the nostril, let it out. That is 1 round. This is soothing both hemispheres of your brain
Dude,
at the
I
same time,
honestly, I'm soothed.
just by
Somewhat. I mean,
one
it's different.
round.
Put it this way. The activity is so different than anything I'd ever done before that I could certainly feel the shift, especially when I let out the second nostril. I could
Yep,
feel things kind of deflating,
yep,
right? In the best way
exactly.
possible.
So you repeat this 10 rounds, 15 rounds. You can do this when you're at a party. You can do this when you're at home. You can
At a
do this.
party? Why am I doing it at a party? People are looking at me like I'm crazy now, huh?
Go to the bathroom, dude. Take a walk. Go outside.
Yeah.
You can do this. And what I'm trying to say is that this is such a powerful exercise that will soothe both hemispheres of your brain. And in that moment that I just described, where you're fighting your craving, there's a part of your brain called the amygdala. It's overactive. Fear, worry, stress, anxiety, all that originates from there. So what you're doing is you're just lowering all the activity in those regions in the brain. So you do 10, 15 rounds of that. That puts you in near alpha state. Alpha state is our brain has 5 levels of activity. Delta is when we're dead asleep. Theta is when we're sort of in between sleep and wakefulness. Alpha is when we have just woken up, that first few moments after waking up. And then there's beta, which is wakefulness. And then there's gamma, which is peak experiences like I just won $100 million, or holy shit, this plane almost crashed and I was on it. These are all examples of peak experiences when you're in an alpha state. So this is all happening in real time. Step one, you play it forward. That should stop you in your tracks. Look, you're craving this one drink, but think beyond that. What's going to happen? Okay, that gives you enough of a pause to be like, all right, hold up, what's happening here? Then you're engaging in your breathing. Immediately after that, you do the 7Y exercise. Get to the root of what it is that is making you want to drink. And this is exactly what people do in my program too, is exactly how it starts. And when you do this, you'll first and foremost, the main thing that your body needs to know and your mind needs to know is, I can just forget about drinking in a matter of a few minutes. I can stop this feeling with just my breath. And when you recognize that, when it hits you, then it's easier to do it again and again. So for anyone that's looking to get started and you struggle with the temptation and the craving at a certain time of day or in certain situations, this is how you can, what I like to call, ride the emotional wave.
My man. All right. So where can people find you? This has been so amazing. All right, the free stuff is over with. Where can people? It's too good. So where can people find you, and how can they take advantage of what you have to offer? We'll put all this stuff in the show notes.
Absolutely. So my Instagram is the best place. It's Hamza Najam .sobriety coaching. I'll type out the handle for you here. And I have my YouTube channel that has tons and tons of transformation stories. It's just Breathe Sober. Just search for Breathe Sober on YouTube and you'll see it. Tons of free breath work, tons of stuff where you can start to learn. And I have a 1-year program, which is my signature program. I don't dabble with a few weeks or anything like that. I only care about long-term results, which is why I offer a year of support. This is not just about quitting drinking, though. That's really just the first step. My goal is for you to find that authentic and most thriving version of yourself. What does that look like? I want to help you build that before you leave, right? That's the goal. It's not open to everybody though, so I will need to talk to you before joining in. We have lawyers, doctors, therapists, like professionals where you would trust them with your life, and they're trusting me with theirs. So it's absolutely incredible. I love working with parents. If you have young children, please reach out to me, because I wouldn't have had my third kid if I hadn't been sober. I had got to a point where like I needed help, a lot of help to be able to do it. Um, if you come to my Instagram, I have a masterclass that I want everybody to see. It breaks down exactly what the real problem is and how focusing all your energy on stopping alcohol is essentially what's failing you, and what the real way is for you to release all the essentially why it's the nervous system and not alcohol, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. And after that, I'd love to hop on a call with you and learn everything about you, about your goals, your challenges, and if genuinely I feel like I can help solve your root cause, because I offer a guarantee with this as well, which not a lot of people do. But I'll invite you to the program. And if I feel like, hey, I might not be able to help for any reason, sometimes you do need medical intervention, and I can't provide that for you. So that's why we have to have the call as well, to make sure that I'm not promising you things I can't deliver. Let's put it that way.
Well,
And that's about it. Yeah.
you delivered today, brother.
Thank you.
Hamza Najam, I really appreciate you. You've helped me today. And I think at the end of the day, not only are you changing lives, but you're also changing the people that, that use your program come in contact with. And to me, that's so special. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I just want to, speaking of changing lives, the greatest moment in my career was earlier this year on Mother's Day. I had a member that joined me in September of last year. She struggled to get going, but she kept at it. She kept at it. She didn't give up. Finally, things stuck. And by Mother's Day, she was 6 months in, and her 11-year-old daughter wrote her a letter for Mother's Day. In that letter, she wrote, and I quote verbatim, "Mommy, I am so happy that you changed your life, because I feel safe with you now all the time, and I love you." That, like,
Yeah.
what? That is the greatest honor that I, as a coach, I could ever be a part of. So that brought me to tears right away. That's why I love working with kids, because it's not just about you. It's about the ones that depend on you as well.
Yeah. You can't put a price on that.
Yeah,
Hamza,
can't put a
man,
price on that.
thank you so much, dude. Keep it going. Anything you need, reach out to me. I'd love to collaborate with you. Of course, I'm going to give you a follow on social media here, and we'll keep it.
Absolutely.
We'll keep it going. But I appreciate you, bud.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to everybody that took the time out of their day to listen. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you guys take some action.
It was. Thanks so much for listening to The Payoff with Pete. Once again, I'm Pete Souza. And of course, we are part of the Rogue Media Network. All kinds of good podcasts you can find at roguemedianetwork.com. And of course, you can find this podcast and all those other ones wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, other spots like that.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production. This has been a Rogue Media Network production.